Hello student, today we will discuss about the Preface to Shakespeare by Samuel Johnson. So William Shakespeare play in Samuel Johnson wrote the preface in which he displays classic critical form. He wrote that Shakespeare's greatness lies in his style of representation of the general human nature. His character are neither type of certain qualities, nor are they some particular person of distinctive individualistic traits. So Johnson explained, Shakespeare's excellencies has likewise faults and faults sufficient to obscure and overwhelm any other merit. Like defect discussed by Johnson are evil in the book of man, time and place and plot are loose. So in the first part, he talk about the nature and excellency. First practice, the modern practice, were always about glorifying the old, degrading the modern. And Johnson says that critic of 18th century take everything that's old for granted, where they doubt everything that is modern. And Johnson say how decide that whether a piece of literature is good or not. So he said thousands of a book written about Shakespeare play, however, if they only lasted for a little while, they fail. Modern works are only for pleasure and they are dialectic. People tastes could change because of time, fashion, or because people themselves have changed. And in second part, he was the first to acknowledge Shakespeare fault in second part, and Shakespeare part big, not minor, and Johnson is subjective in this part of the essay. So in second part, he takes the aim of the poetry to teach and delight it. Shakespeare's poetry, however, sometimes delighted without teaching. For example, when Portia dressed up as men, attained Trail and Serve Antonio, which wasn't morally except for a woman to do so at that time. So Shakespeare wrote about Egypt, Italy, Denmark, etc. However, we didn't find a real difference between the characters. Shakespeare's good, but it is considered a fault. So it was a comic in his sense. The characters speak the same language. In his tragedies, the more he tries to give us the weak in the plot for become, for example, in the Hamlet, the more get into the play, you find the story isn't as strong as it was in the beginning. And in the narration of all genre, he used many words to express simple idea. So Shakespeare tragic heroes always face a gross end. For example, when Hamlet died with him, the technical fault he neglected three unities like place, time, and action. Although he disregard to the time, place, and time and action. So he also talks about the Shakespearean comedy, like comedy often defined as dramatic composition with happy ending, and it is also defined as the play aiming at the production of the laughter, but nothing but laughter. So Aristotle defined comedy as imitation of the men who worse than average, worse ever not regard as any sort of the fault, but only regards one particular kind, the ridiculous, which is the species of thought. So, according to him, the ridiculous may be defined not the productive of pain or norm to another. So, according to him, the Shakespearean comedy in the world of Johnson and Carlton, the comedy is not satiric and it doesn't conservative. It is creative. The way of it is that of imagination rather than that the pure reason. The comedy is romantic not only the sense that it doesn't observe the classical rules of the dramatic composition. So some of the comedies are like As You Like It, 12th Night, a happy comedy, and it is a mixture of romance and comedy. Also includes reality. Lovers, Labor Laws, comedy of dialogue, Midnight Comedy. Then it came to the tragedies of Shakespearean, like it is the exploring of the man's relation to the force of evils in the world. It seeks for the answer to cosmic problems. Much religion seeks them. It is a production of a man's desire to believe it a purposive and ordered universe. So Shakespeare tragic development is treated accordingly as growth in moral vision. The central moral theme shapes the various elements of tragedy. So the moral elements of the tragedy are action, character, and poetry. The deviation from the art of writing to, according to Johnson, the critical justice without making any other demand in his favor than that which must be indulged to all human excellence, that his virtue related with his feelings. So in the part three, Johnson opinion regarding the three unities is the first English writer to express these ideas, and this is the most original idea that Johnson came up with. Johnson agreed with the unities of the action, object, and the unities of time and place. So Johnson said that unities of time and place not important and history play. It is the example about the battle. It is a move or move to the hospital. By definition, history is about time. Therefore, it is the impossible to have a one-day history play. So Shakespeare, in his tragedies and comedy, followed the unities of action. Shakespeare disregarded two unity, time and place. So he also talks about the fidelity to facts of nature, means judgment of as dramatist. According to Johnson, the basic requirement of literary greatness is fidelity to facts of nature, and this is clearly the new classical theory of art as imitation. And he praises Shakespeare for meeting this requirement fully and most satisfactorily, according to him. So Shakespeare is par excellence, a poet of nature, and he hold up his reader in faithful mirror of manners and of life, and his characters have a universal appeal. They act and speak like human beings, as they are commonly a species. So he talks about the realism also, like place of unity and timing. He says that his depiction of the truth of human nature and human psychology is praiseworthy, and he portrayed human characters in a realistic manner, and his plays are full of practical axioms and domestic wisdom. He does not depict love as the major human motive or emotion. He knew that love is only one of the many passions. He had no great influence upon the totality of life, and it has little operation in the drama of Shakespeare. So he discussed the realistic quality of Shakespeare dialogues too, and mingling of tragic and comedic element. We earlier discussed, like in his plays on the ground of realism and historical background, he mingling both the element. So only serves to this mingling only serve to show us the world in which the loss of one man is the gain of another. So in other words, Shakespeare was equally at home in writing tragic and comic plays, and he could combine comic and tragic events in one and the same play. So almost all his plays are divided between serious and ludicrous characters, and they sometimes produce sorrow and sometimes laughter. So Shakespeare has been charged for neglecting unities, means we discussed, but Johnson defend him in this matter. According to him, neglect is not really a fault. He argues that if an audience in a theater can accept the stage as a locality in the city of Rome, they will also accept the change of Rome to Alexandria. So the unity of time may likewise be violated on the same principle. So he conclude this discussion by saying that unities of time and place are not essential to a good play, and he subject the faults of Shakespeare also. So in his preface, Johnson defends Shakespeare in many matters, but he does not consider him to be a faultless dramatist. According to him, Shakespeare tries more to please his audience than to instruct them. So it seems that he writes without any moral purpose. His plots are often very loosely formed and carelessly pursued, and his comic senses are seldom very successful. And in such senses, the jests are generally indecent. So the Johnson does not take favorable view of the Shakespeare tragically. He accuses him of employing a disproportionate prompt of diction, like he condemns so Shakespeare for inappropriate use of idle conceit and his over fondness for quibbles. So in conclusion, like Johnson is a great critic. So his preface is a balanced estimate, but here Johnson shows that his penetrating power that probes to a very core of Shakespeare art. It reveals its deep humanity and its sovereign realism. So his praise of Shakespeare as a dramatist of realism, par excellence, and wholly justified and convincing. So I hope you understand this video, and I hope you understand these major points which I have tried to explain to you. And please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.